So if you're Polish, you definitely know who Adam Małysz is. If you're not Polish, you might not know that, about 18 years ago, he was a very, very, very big deal in Poland. Hard to explain really how huge he was. He was on every TV screen. The whole country was going mad about Adam Małysz. And in fact, when you look at his accomplishments in his sport, that was completely justified. His sport, of course, being ski jumping. And he is the subject of our KrakCast profile today. Guys, before we jump in any deeper, one thing I got to address here, as is so often the case on the KrakCast, we have no real expertise on this subject. Of ski jumping, really?
I mean, I meant the mustaches. So obviously we start with the mustache, right?
All right. So let's go around the room. What do we think about ski jumping as a sport,
Michael?
Not enough blood in it. Or
interesting. Barely a sport in my eyes. Not enough people competing around the world. Let's get this clear, okay? Ski jumping is amazingly, incredibly impressive. It's amazing that anyone would willingly do this, hurl themselves down a giant ramp. 90 meters long is the biggest one.
I think they're even longer.
I think the 90 is the biggest one. I mean, actually, there might be a super big one, even bigger. And it's astonishing how far they go. 100 meters, 120 meters. But it's boring to watch.
Just like, I remember this story when he flew his first time over 200 meters. It happens.
All right, so you do watch it, Mike, huh?
World record, 253.5 meters. Can you imagine flying 253.5 meters?
I don't imagine. I've seen it a million times. My wife, like all Polish people, loves watching ski jumping. When the season is on, she tries to tune in because the boys are always winning.
Mine too, yeah.
And they seem to occupy this special place in the Polish psyche. There's not just an assumption that they're brave, good boys who've brought home lots of gold medals for Poland, but there also seems to be this weird thing that we also assume they're wonderful people who love their mother as well. Would you agree?
Good people.
It was true until like the recent few seasons where one of them cheated on his wife, and there's been some. I don't know who is what, but
gotta be honest.
drama.
Don't follow it closely.
So basically, Dave, if I understand correctly, you got a lot of respect for what they do, but you're still not interested. Interested.
Here's my issue with it. They never crash when you're watching it. I'm sorry, people.
No blood.
Okay, so it's just a series of perfect landings, one after the other after the other. I've always maintained the only thing that should be televised is like 16-year-olds learning how to ski jump the very first time. That's the shit I want to see.
Yeah.
Oh, I think the revolution should be televised.
Also, Josh,
have you seen Eddie the Eagle, John?
What?
Eddie the Eagle, the movie.
No.
It's brilliant.
Is it really?
It's really good. I went to see it in the cinema.
Is that sarcasm or not?
No, it's not. It's a really good one of them good, feel-good sports movies. I just want to highly recommend it to all of our listeners.
It is a classic example of, the British being absolutely hopeless at something, but still trying really, really hard. And,
Josh, ski jumping? Yes, no, maybe?
Ski jumping, it's a fairly efficient way of converting potential energy into kinetic energy.
Coming from Florida, we don't have mountains or snow. I really can't relate. But in fairness, Dave...
You don't do water sports either, John, right?
Of course we do. But,
no, you personally.
It's for other people. I can't be bothered to get up and get dressed for that now.
Kind of in the
what sports were you into when you were young? You're a big dude.
Changing channels.
You didn't play anything?
Basketball, kind of, sort of, I guess, usual stuff on the playground.
Turning the record over.
But can we agree that...
varsity then, though.
Can we agree that ski jumping is, it's like American baseball or Gaelic football or cricket or whatever. If you don't grow up with it, it's hard to get into it later in life.
Well, look, I think it's one of those sports where you watch it and you think, oh my God, I can't believe people do that. But after you've been watching it for a while, it's just like boring because it's the same thing over and over and over and over and over again.
Can you say the same thing about basketball?
No.
Or swimming?
No, you really can't.
Or how about football? Like soccer, couldn't you say the same thing about that?
You could say about swimming, but
they kick the ball back and forth over and over, same thing.
All right, the first two I won't even deal with. They're so ridiculous. Every pattern of play in basketball and football is in some way unique. That's why they're beautiful.
There's critics. I mean, people who don't like it can say the same thing. People who don't like the sport can say it's the same thing over and over.
Let me take swimming, okay?
Okay.
At least it's a race,
All right. Oh, that's a good segue to the question I was going to ask you. This is interesting. I think I know what you're going to say, but I'm going to ask anyway. Some people make the argument that, let's say, golf, bowling, maybe ski jumping, not really sports, more like skills because you're not playing against anybody.
Well, I certainly wouldn't accuse ski jumpers of not being real sportsmen. Is
it a skill or a sport?
It's an amazing mixture of courage, technique.
That is such a dodging my question.
Yes, it's a sport.
It's a sport. So even if there's nobody there opposing you, trying to slow you down, down like in other, team against team sports. It's still a sport.
You're conflating two arguments. The whole is golf a sport thing is centered around the question of do you need athleticism to compete in golf, and if you don't need athleticism, is it a game and not really a real professional sport? Okay,
it's a competition.
So you're taking an argument, you're leaving half of it out, and then you're jumping around here.
I vote that we go back to talking about Adam Małysz.
That's what it was about.
This is his profile after all. Anyway,
this is not the most complimentary of profiles, is it? I don't think if Adam Małysz clicks on this, I don't think he's going to
get to that. It's going to be complimentary.
Trashed his sport. We're now going to trash his mustache.
Born in 1977, he's going to be 42 years old this year in December. He started in the sport in 1995 at the age of 18, but it wasn't until the 2000-2001 season where he really had his kind of a professional breakthrough. And for the next 2 seasons, leading up till about 2004, he was utterly, completely dominant. The statistics speak for themselves. 4 World Cup titles, 4 gold medals at the World Championships, only ski jumper to win 3 consecutive World Cup titles. Although strangely, in his whole career, at 4 Olympic Games, he failed to win any gold medals. He's got 3 silvers and a bronze, individual and team events.
Can I ask you, John, did he win the World Championship in 2005?
I don't know. He did not win. He has 1, 2, 3, and then 7. I think he had 2007 had a resurge, a big comeback in his career, and then he, the next 4 years, kind of winding down until he retired.
Was Galeria Krakowska open by 2007?
Fall 2006, I think. So yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. I'm just checking if this memory checks out with the facts, because I'll never forget this, and that's why it was so bizarre. I honestly don't know if it happened. I walked into Saturn, and I swear to God, half of Krakow was in the TV section. The rest of the shop, an electronics goods store, was completely abandoned. All staff had left their stations, and everybody was watching the final round of the ski jumping. It was, I know that doesn't sound as impressive now, but if you saw this bizarre situation, you really would have been impressed.
Well, I was here at the height of Małyszomania, as I think Dr. Mike, you were as well.
Małyszomania, yeah.
Małyszomania, and I can remember, like you said, David, in public spaces and in stores with TVs, I remember walking through, even places like student dormitories and just bars and any place with a television. There was a massive crowd anytime there was a ski jumping competition, and I tried to get into it. I did, but it didn't grab me. I don't know, it didn't grab me very much.
Actually, the first internet memes in Poland I saw were about Małysz, and this is pre-Facebook time when sharing this stuff was a little more difficult. So it's basically just a Photoshop image of like the silhouette of Małysz flying with a airplane above him, with the fuel tank coming down, giving him like extra fuel for the flight. Do you remember that?
I wasn't listening.
No, what? That was a real letdown, Mike. I thought I was expecting something better than that.
Refueling midair, I think. Yeah. Okay, I got it.
I was trying to quickly Google the whole how big is the biggest ski jump thing, because that's wrecking my head now. I thought it was 70 and 90 in major competitions, but I think you're also right. I think there's a special event outside of the big competition.
Like a super hill thing.
A super hill thing. Do you know, John?
No, I don't. But I know it's just a regular normal hill and what's it called, big hill or large hill?
We're making a show of ourselves.
Yeah, making that up. Actually,
nothing about this sport.
Anyway, Małysz retired. He retired from the sport in 2011, and he's still part of the scene today. He's involved as a director with the Polish Ski Federation, so he's still very much involved.
Well, a director of ski jumping. Down, I think, is he's the director.
Mention the sport that he got involved with after that.
He's in car racing now.
He's a rally car driver.
What do you call it? The Dakar Raid? What's it called? The rally?
Yeah, the one that used to be in Africa, but it was too dangerous, so they went to South America.
And still called it the same thing. It was still the Dakar Rally, but in South America or something like that.
So hoping to kind of pick up the gauntlet of Robert Kubica then.
Paris to Dakar, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Paris Dakar, yeah.
But so again, stats speaks for themselves. He's still one of the all-time greats, despite having left the sport 8 years ago. And you cannot talk about the elite of ski jumping without talking about Adam Małysz. But what I want to touch on here for sure before we go is the fact that he was kind of the first phenomenon, kind of crossover from the world of sports into Polish pop culture and the commercial scene in Poland.
Oh yeah,
we're talking 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, something like that, roughly 17, 18, 19 years ago, and this was really the first time in the post-communist era that there was a sporting star there that had massive marketing potential, along with the companies willing and able to hire him and use him, and his face was everywhere. When he wasn't on television jumping off a mountain, he was on television promoting various products. Let me give you this is a partial list of some of the things that he promoted in Poland. Windows, it's the actual Windows, not Microsoft, but the Windows. Soup, Audi, he was the spokesman for Audi cars for Poland. Poczta Polska, which is kind of weird. I don't know. It would
be very Polish if he just sponsored soup in general. I'm Adam Małysz and I support soup.
Poczta Polska, a tea, sports betting, insurance, chocolate. That's a partial list. In fact, again, 8 years after his retirement, you may have seen him just recently. He's the face, along with his wife and his daughter. He's the face of a promotional campaign right now for Play, the telecom.
But when you're in an ad for Play, you just become overexposed. My God, their faces are everywhere. What is the story with this country mobile phone ads?
No. Play right now is it's a Play ad, so I'll see whatever celebrity is popular right now.
Mega celebrity. Yes.
That's how I know somebody's a celebrity.
But here's the thing, guys. Like I said, he was really the first of this type, and he was followed by people like what was his name? Andrzejczyk. Wait. And I got this list on my head before I forget. Andrzejczyk, the swimmer, Kowalska, another Olympian. Of course, Lewandowski. Today we'll talk about him in another show. But sports stars who just plug into these commercial opportunities, and it kind of. The question I want to ask you guys to see what you think is that, I've always been convinced that Poland is massively starved for sportsmen who are accomplished at the highest global elite level. And for a country of 40 million people, I don't know if Poland has as many athletes at that level as they should. And when one breaks through, again, all these mega corporations are ready to jump in with their money and put their face on every television screen around you. And again, we're used to it now, again, with Lewandowski and some of the people that I mentioned. But I think Małysz was the first.
You started that point 3.5 minutes ago.
It took a while to get out. It took a while to get out.
Okay, all right. I get what you're saying, yeah. But I want to say that they were just the first people that had the opportunity. It was always going to happen. As the Polish economy took off, people had disposable income, these products needed to be sold. Sure. And what better than a Polish sports star? There was never a situation.
It was just the first marriage of marketing money and sports accomplishment.
So they were just waiting. If it hadn't been Małysz, it would have been somebody else. What's Adam Małysz supposed to do? Turn down the opportunity?
No, I'm not criticizing him for it.
John, he's always been passionate about soup.
I'm not criticizing him for it. I'm just saying that it was a phenomenon. The Poland really hadn't seen something like that before.
No, that's true. But then you kind of went on to impinge the sporting culture of Poland. And let me tell you,
I stand by that. I don't think for 40 million people, Poland doesn't have
the only sport that matters first. Football. They've always been well respected in the football world. They came second and third in the World Cup.
Yeah, like third in 1974.
And they won't shut up about it.
Yeah, that's
okay.
true.
All right. Since you mentioned it, you're going to make me defend my position.
They always had great players.
This is a side argument to our main thread on Małysz.
I just have to interrupt very, very
You're going to interrupt my interruption, Dave?
Yes. Because
thank you. Get in there, son.
I'm sure if the Catholic Church was willing to accept more in the way of commercial sponsorship, that Jan Pavel II might well have been,
You interrupted me for that?
Yeah.
Good God. All right, here's my point. Little Lithuania regularly produces excellent swimmers, has a basketball team that's always competitive. Little Slovakia, little Czech Republic next to us. Regularly produce elite level NHL hockey players and tennis players. Little Hungary, landlocked Hungary has elite swimmers and water polo. And what does Poland's never?
Could you say that again? Water polo.
Water polo.
Okay, we already covered the fact you didn't play sports as a child.
Poland
Poland
has 4 times as many people and is not as competitive.
Football is the only sport that matters. And Poland are good at football.
They're good at football because they were second and third in the 70s.
They're a lot better than the countries you just named.
Okay, how about all the 80s? And then I'm not saying they're horrible, but they haven't been consistently good. They're not consistently competitive.
They're as good as the US.
Okay, now you're really talking about apples and oranges. Jesus Christ.
Easily. And don't they have your favorite NBA player as well? The bald guy?
Okay, but when you're born, they say you can't.
The NBA,
Marcin Gortat, you're talking about. You can't teach height, so that's because he's born with the right genetics, and so he gets in the NBA, just like most of the people in the NBA.
And they do well at winter sports, other winter sports, right?
No. There's the fallacy there because, yes, generally successful basketball players are tall, but that does not then imply the reverse, which is that tall people are successful basketball players. And you can look in my direction.
What is the one sport that Poland is always consistently competitive in? What, name it? You can't.
Okay, volleyball. Well, you dismiss my point about Poland always producing world-class players like, Boniec and Lato and now Lewandowski. Right, now let me just cover something
Separate
here, John,
Separate show.
The United States have played in every World Cup since 1950, right?
Well, they beat England,
even further back. And they have never, a nation of 300 million people, have never produced a football player even fit to wipe that guy's boots.
Okay, so what do you think about India and China and their football players then?
And
if it's about population.
all of those countries put together have never produced a Lewandowski. Lewandowski smiles down magically.
You're mixing cultures and sports. Where's Poland's elite class ping pong player? Where's their elite class snooker player? That's ridiculous. You can't.
China are spending billions to catch up.
Oh my God, you're all over the place.
It's the only sport that matters.
I'm sure we'll come back to this point in other shows about sportsmen, which is the theme of our next 4 or 5 profiles, by the way. But I don't think Poland has the elite athletes they should at that level for having 40 million people. I stand alone in this. I don't care. That's why I get paid. Okay. I get paid the big money to make those controversial statements. Dr. Mike?
I don't really care much about sports, especially if it doesn't involve women in bikinis.
What about boxing, John?
Women in bikinis.
What's Adam Małysz profile? Dr. Mike, Dr. Mike, did the country go crazy for Adam Małysz because they were already ski jumping fans and he kind of embodied their enthusiasm, or did the country become fans of ski jumping because of his success?
In Poland, generally, all those like winter sports, athletic sports that when I lived in the U.S., nobody really talked about it. It was popular here, but it wasn't anything like a mainstay. When Małysz became popular, it exploded.
Yeah.
There's no other way to put it. It's basically everybody was an expert. Everybody knew everything about it. They talked about people, jumpers for the past 20 years, and it was on all the time. Like you said, the cities, homes, everything would just shut down for that moment to watch the.
Yeah, Mikey, it's more fun being an underdog country anyway in sports, isn't it?
Usually, yeah.
They just think everything's about gold medals and victory with their.
I saw cool runnings.
Yeah, man.
Interesting thing about
America, Britain, which
interesting
is
stat I noticed about Małysz. He's not even in the top 10 of any of the longest jumps ever.
But that's
so apparently he's more consistent.
Yeah.
More consistent, but he wasn't a long jumper necessarily.
I would imagine, like most world records in any length, distance, or endurance sport, they're always kind of being increased. It's just that that psychological thing. You're always trying to go one better. So I think that's a bit unfair. If he was the outstanding jumper of his time, that's all you can say.
I have an idea. I think this is going to revolutionise ski jumping. Actually, and if you just bear with me for a moment. Like bowls.
You're going to say something about the Pope?
The vodka?
No. Okay. The game bowls, right, where you have like a small ball, which is like the jack, and then the object is to try and get your ball nearest to it. Ski jumping.
Was this the sport of Louis XIV or something, or what the hell?
It's 15th.
It's a very sedentary sport, John. You'd love
Never
it. I
heard
think
of
it's
it.
right up your
Never heard of it.
right up your boulevard. The idea is like you have like shall we say like a nominal ski jumper who goes down the ramp and he lands, and then they put a big blue X where he lands, and then the job is to ski jump and land as close as possible to that X.
I like that. Or we could have a series of flaming Olympic rings. Okay,
yeah,
and
I'm all for that. Yeah.
Different distances and heights apart, and there was an ascending amount of points you got for the more difficult ones that were covered in fire and barbed wire and stuff.
Like a kind of Sonic the ski jumper sort of.
I like it.
There's some explosions in there somewhere.
You get a nice like jingling sound for each ring that you collect.
How about a car chase down the ramp?
Or once every round, the track
being
kind of
silly.
just disappears on one guy, and he just like fucking falls through, man.
Shark Tank.
So in other words, the video game version of ski jumping would be great. Yeah.
Make this into more of an Ironman contest. He has to like run up the hill, then ski jump and land, and he has to like do some sharpshooting. Yeah.
And then
you ski jump onto a ski jump, right? You set them up like roughly 200 meters apart, right? And the game is you have to land and ski straight onto the next one, man.
Yeah.
I'm looking for. I'm just checking this really quick online. A little bit of.
You're not impressed. He was not impressed, was he?
Ski jumping? No, not at all. Ski jumping was one of the last Olympic sports that was one gender only, was men only, until I want to say 2012. When did the women's ski jumping?
Boxing as well.
Was it boxing too? Yeah, women's boxing came, and then the 2010 Olympic Winter Games. So prior to that, it was men only. Sexist?
Absolutely.
If women want to jump off a 90-meter ramp, no ways to stop.
In really skin-tight clothing, fine.
Michael.
Well, main takeaway from this is we're not big fans of ski jumping, but still we respect the fact that Adam Małysz is among the best ever to do it. And he was a very, very big deal. Again, pop culture, marketing, advertising, the whole world of... what's the word I'm looking for? The world of
upper lip grooming products.
Soup and Audi and windows and stuff like that.
Most importantly,
endorsements. Thank you.
There's a great line in the Eddie the Eagle movie where he's practicing the big jumps for the first time, and this old coach goes, most people spend their entire teen years getting ready for this moment, and 60% of them never ever do it once. It just kind of shows how much courage it takes to even try it. It is amazing.
Talking about virginity loss.
Oh, going off a 70-metre ramp and risking your life, Josh. Show some respect for Eddie the Eagle. He was British.
Speaking of practicing for this, what does practice look like when you're not qualified to jump?
Well, no, can I say something?
Do you go to the edge and stop?
John, can I say something? For some reason, right, I went to...
the brakes on halfway down.
It's a very good question. They have small ramps, basically. They get bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay. The ones you see are the very top ones. Okay, right. But there's a training montage in Eddie the Eagle, a good 20-minute one, right? And it's absolutely brilliant film, by the way. But I happened to go and see it in the cinema. And there's some astonishing head cam footage, like when they're going down the practice ramps, and it's absolutely thrilling stuff. Like, I remember I went to see it with my buddy Damo, and we were both saying after the movie, like, you were actually grabbing the seat, like, I mean, so it takes a lot of courage to train it.
They have catchers, don't they, when you're just, you kind of come down the ramp, and then there's a load of people who try and catch you so that you don't. I just made that up.
No, they don't. And it basically, the ramps just keep getting bigger. You just keep trying it until you get better. And basically, for the first year or two, you do hurt yourself an awful lot, of course.
By the way, I thought that everybody who was involved in elite ski jumping was kind of small. Like I thought that was part of the job. But some of these guys, I noticed they're like 1 meter 80, 1 meter 82.
Tall guys, even going back to the Finnish guy,
so small.
It
has to usually do also with your weight and your distribution of weight in your body. So
aerodynamics.
Well, actually, it's not. Yeah, it's actually to do with aerodynamic or fluid dynamics, because the longer you are, the longer the wave that you're generating, and the longer the wave, the greater the maximum allowable velocity.
Nice bit of science on, nice.
Oh, yeah.
What was your man's name? The Finnish guy who Eddie the Eagle, the same Olympics, the Flying Finn. Something.
The most inevitable nickname ever.
Yeah. Anyway.
No? Okay, we'll leave it at that. We don't know. We couldn't be bothered to look it up.
Yeah, there was a Frenchman jumping Jacques.
Yeah, again, inevitable.
And if you're listening to this, Małysz, Lewandowski's the greatest sportsman of all time.